I literally left Phoenix with probably maybe about $70 in my pocket. And to get there, I can't rent a car because my account's dead until I get paid on Friday.
Yeah.
And so I get, a taxi to the hotel. I'm staying, a little Motel 6. Yeah. I've got to hustle them to let me check in, to promise them that on Friday I'm going to have some money in there.
Wow.
And this is night before the contest. It's like a Thursday night. We're starting on Friday.
Yeah.
I walk over to the Denny's, and I'm literally ordering off like you kind of pick your own
99-cent menu.
Yeah, picking, and then they're like, "Do you want something to drink?" And I'm like, "No." And like they felt bad for me, so they go, "You can never give you water." And I'm like, "Well, okay."
Yeah.
So they had like $12 to buy some food,
Yeah.
And I'm like, most guys wouldn't do that. There's no way.
No chance.
But
yeah. Welcome to the Shaw Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Shaw, and today we have got a really, really awesome guest. Mr. Jerry Pritchett is in the house. Jerry is a multiple-time World's Strongest Man finalist, competed at the Arnold Classic for years, just kind of a staple in the strongman world, but he has also done a lot outside of the strongman world. He's got a really interesting story. I was doing a little bit of research on you, man, coming into this and just trying to find out some stuff. And it's really interesting with this podcast. I've had a few guys on that I've known for years, literally for years. And I found out a lot of new stuff, different things, outside of the sport. I think we all get so tied up in competing competition. Hey, you show up to a contest. How was the training? How's the family? How are things, man, whatever. Yeah. And I'm excited to find out more, man. But how are you doing? Good?
Doing good. Much better now.
Yes. Yeah.
A little rough last night, but doing much better right now.
We're on a little bit of a delay with the podcast because Jerry must have ate something bad, but we got flexibility, man.
Good. Luckily.
Yeah.
Luckily,
we're here for you. We're here for you to have fun, man. So luckily you got some food in, and everything seems to be staying down, but
much better now.
Yes, 100%, 100%. So
excited to be here. This will be fun.
Yeah, it will be, man. So going back to growing up, I feel like a lot of times with us, our childhood and different experiences that we have, a lot of that type of stuff tends to mold us.
Absolutely.
Very much into who we become, and a lot of our mindset stems from that. Yeah. So talk to me about Jerry growing up. Like, what type of kid were you? What were you into?
So, primarily growing up, I grew up in my dad's fab shop. My dad had a fab shop in Phoenix, and I spent every summer there, every day after school, every weekend, whether it was, just making something, on my own, or when I actually started working. I started working in the shop when I was 12 years old.
So your earliest memories are?
It's always just been at the shop, really.
You showed up when you were?
Yeah, I'd either go shop with him, or my mom would pick me up after school and we'd go to the shop, and I just was always at the shop, So it's been a huge benefit growing up, though, growing up in that atmosphere. Not only learning a trade, for one, but learning hard work and the struggles of self-employment and all that, and that work ethic. My old man was the hardest working guy I could ever meet, and so I learned that work ethic from him. It's carried over into multiple things that I've done, especially strongman.
Well, 100%, and you are known as a hardworking dude. I think just by and large in the sport, you've done a lot of different things, but you've also worked full time. Yeah. You've kept that, you've maintained that, you've been a dad, and you've done that and still trained and still competed and fit it into your life. Yeah. And I think that's pretty amazing, and a lot of us have different paths that we go down, getting into the sport. But, with that, so you're going, as a kid, your earliest memories are going in hard work, what your dad taught you and what you got to see. And I'm sure a lot of it maybe wasn't even said. It was just what you observed, what you observed as a kid.
Yeah. Just watching. Because, I loved the trade from a young age. So, whether I was watching him build something or one of the guys that worked in the shop, I was all the time just watching, learning, just like a sponge, just learning all that, which carried over to, a career, but then, like I said, learning that that hard work and self-employment is not easy. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's some good times we're eating steak, and there's other times we're eating beans. It's not so good. But I think it's a valuable lesson, growing up in. And then we got to do a lot of cool stuff. We're big in, we're a racing family. So we grew up, my dad always built race cars. So I grew up, going to the racetrack, building race cars, in that atmosphere of the race cars, and then at 15, I'd been kind of messing around at home, with, I had, a little home gym set, and me and a buddy, we'd train every now and then. One of the things you train for, a week or two, then maybe not for a week or two, then back again,
Absolutely.
And kind of through like middle school. And then I played freshman football my freshman year. And then a buddy of mine decided we were going to go to another gym. He could get us on the base, which is close to the House Air Force Base. And so we were going to go there just to try to be more serious and try to get a little bigger and stronger for football. And there was a powerlifting gym down the road that actually one of the guys that worked on the race car was training at. He'd went there just to lose weight. And the guy that ran it, Michael Wanetti, he was an old powerlifter. And if any guys showed any signs like they could be strong, he'd get them into powerlifting. And so, we'd be working on a race car for years before I started. And John would be talking about, powerlifting, and we didn't have a clue. We knew race cars, And so anyways, fast forward when I was 15, and then we were going to go to the base gym, and my dad said, well, why don't you go down to Thorbeck's, where John goes. Okay, so we went down there and literally walked in on a Monday, and a buddy of mine, and he was the guy that ran it, said, I'm running a Teenage Nationals Saturday. You guys want to do it? There's some guys from your high school doing it that we didn't even know. And Buddy was like, no, he wasn't really interested. I said, well, what do I got to do? So this is how you squat, this is how you bench, this is how you deadlift. And I got a crash course in it. I trained every day that week. And then when Mom dropped me off on that Friday to train, and he goes, what are you doing here? So I'm here to work out. He goes, you're doing a meet tomorrow. Go home. Okay. And so I did the meet that Saturday and instantly fell in love with it. Like, because at the time, football was the interest that got me in there. Well, why I wanted to get bigger and stronger. And then instantly fell in love with the strength side. And
that's crazy, man.
This is cool. This is all on me.
Yeah.
Because football, you can have basketball, you can have the greatest game of your life, and the rest of the team doesn't have a great game, you guys still lose.
Absolutely. Win as a team, lose as a team, for sure.
Strength, whether it's powerlifting or strongman or anything like that, you have a bad day, you just have a bad day.
That's it. You got to look yourself in the mirror.
That's right. There's no one to blame for it.
Yeah.
And I love that about it. I could see what I put into it. I could see the return.
Absolutely.
And it went up pretty fast.
So with you, with the earlier training, you said you're just kind of messing around and, maybe, and this is, I think what tends to happen with, with a lot of guys that age, it's like, okay, I'm going to come in and do this and, whatever, you kind of get distracted, you come back, you get distracted. And so, at that age, that was all home training, like kind of messing around with your buddy? Or
messing around at home.
Yeah.
That's why I tell one story when I was probably like 7th, 8th grade, and I'm in there benching. I had the weeder set with the collars that screwed on.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And of course I got them on tight, and I'm in there, benching. Well, like I failed a rep. I'm sitting there, and I can't get it. Well, man, sitting in the living room. I'm like, Dad, nothing. So I rolled all the way down. I set it off. I walk out in the living room. He goes, "What'd you want?" Nothing now. Nothing now. But yeah, you're just playing around at home. I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. Of course, us back then, we didn't have social media or YouTube to know anything.
Of
we're
course.
just really just best we had was some muscle magazine or something like
Absolutely.
that. Even when I started powerlifting, we had Powerlifting USA. That was our big go-to.
Yep.
When you want to find out when meets were, guys, different training, they made do articles, and that was your info for everything. Was Powerlifting USA.
That's crazy.
I remember the gym. I mean, there was just a pile of them. And we got done training. We just go through them, just reading the articles and just trying to learn and absorb.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that. I remember a lot of my early routines were out of like Muscle and Fitness. Yeah. And you just say, hey, here's a routine, here's an article. I'm going to try that. Yeah. And of course that's obviously a lot bodybuilding based, all of it is, but it's crazy from a competition standpoint. You walked into that gym and the guy was like, hey, there's a meet on Saturday. Yeah. And you literally didn't know. I mean, not that you wouldn't know, but bench, squat, deadlift. Okay, what do I have to do?
Yeah. Yeah, they got a crash course on each one.
Yeah.
And why I ended up, because for my first part of my powerlifting career, I deadlifted sumo. And partly because the guy that showed me, Michael 18, was a top ranked, like 181, 165 sumo deadlifter. I mean, he had like an almost 700 deadlift, in the 80s.
Interesting.
And so I got there's two ways to deadlift. You can do it this way, or we do it, well, I guess.
Here's the way I do it.
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to do it that way, But yeah, it was literally just got a crash course and did that first one at Nationals. And there was a couple of guys, and I always go back to like for like strength. This was probably the best thing that happened to me. That there was two other guys from my high school that, so back then you had to have a qualifying total to qualify for Junior Olympics.
Okay.
And I didn't meet that qualifying total that first meet I did. Well, the other guys, they had been training a while. They'd been in the gym. They were a little more familiar. They both met it and went that year. And nothing pissed me off more than two other guys from my high school going. And I knew nothing. Really, nothing to blame, but still it lit a fire in me. So I literally trained my ass. I did not miss a day. I remember when football started in the fall, I was pretty upset because I was gonna have to miss some time because of football.
Yeah.
And I remember getting done with football my sophomore year and was really pretty upset because I'm like, because I lost quite a bit that I had when I went into football in August.
Absolutely.
And I come out in November. I'm like, oh man, what a waste. I just, I lost all the strength. And of course, it came back pretty quick and I got going.
Yep.
But then the next year I qualified for the Junior Olympics and ended up going 3 times and won gold 3 times.
That's awesome,
But
man. And so that was like 16. You trained from 15 to 16.
Yeah. So I went at 16 the first time.
Okay.
And then again at 17. And then I was playing football. So I didn't go at 18. I went again at 19.
Okay.
So that was the 3 times I went.
That's great. Where do you think, if you had to say, where do you think that competitive drive came from? I mean, was it something, growing up around your dad, the hard work, it's interesting to me because I would feel the same way, right? It's like these two guys are going, I'm not going.
Yeah.
I want to go.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do what it takes to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, where do you think that stemmed from?
It had just come from like the hard work, and when racing, we were really competitive with racing.
And what age did you start that?
So I started, I worked on race cars forever.
Yeah.
I started driving a little bit at probably 6th grade, 7th grade.
Wow. So really young.
Yeah. In a mini sprint. And then once I got into football and powerlifting, I didn't do anything in high school. It was really, my mom and dad didn't want me to race because being from a racing family, my grandfather would race.
Yep.
It's a rough sport, and there's a lot.
I don't know a lot about it, but I know that it is rough.
There's a lot of bad injuries. A lot of people get killed in race cars and whatever. So they weren't huge fans of me wanting to be a race car driver.
I could imagine. Yeah.
So it wasn't until early 20s that I built my own sprint car and went racing, kind of really on my own.
So you're already powerlifting for a significant amount of time, which is interesting because I would imagine, I mean, you're got to be at that point bigger and gaining muscle and. So is it an advantage to be heavier?
No, not at all. I was way too big. So when I started powerlifting, my first meet I was probably about 197, 200 pounds.
Okay.
And
at 15.
At 15.
So you're big. I mean, that's a big kid.
And I was tall because I got a big, huge growth spurt kind of into my 7th grade and kind of shot up and then just kind of grew a little bit taller through 8th grade into 9th and then this height since.
Yep.
But I was just like kind of rail skinny.
Yeah.
And then so as soon as I started training, with the powerlifting, I wanted to put on size. That was a mission, So I mean, I would get out of class, I had 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I need to eat. So I would go to my car, make a weight gainer shake.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, or, after school, I'd go over to, like Whataburger and get like 2 Whoppers or 2 chicken sandwiches. And I'd be sitting behind the gym, washing it down with a weight gainer shake.
Yeah.
My gut couldn't do that now if I had to.
You and me both, brother. Yeah.
And I remember the older guys that are, us now, walking and looking and going, this kid, and I'm just, watching and then walk straight in the gym and start instantly training.
Yeah. That's something you can only do at that age.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so I went from the beginning of my freshman year, about 197, 200. I went in my sophomore year about 220.
Okay.
And then into my junior year about 265. And then into my senior year at 275. And then I graduated at 298. Wow. I wanted to be 300 pounds when I graduated. And I was like just pushing myself to get it.
I mean, and in all fairness, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, to gain like that consistently through high
I was
school.
100 pounds in high school.
I mean, how?
Purely from just training and
Yeah.
just pushing food.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because especially time my senior year, I mean, I would get home and, you know, my mom would make at least almost a pound of hamburger meat and like a can of beans, like, and tortillas. Like that was because it was cheap.
Sure.
You know, and that was my meal after training, you know.
Absolutely.
And I hit 300 pounds just after I graduated, like the week after. I finally
That's
hit
funny
300.
you remember that.
Yeah. And then I got up to, because then I was going to go play at a JC. So I had some scholarship opportunities for football. But I had a bit of an attitude problem when I was in high school.
Okay.
And especially as I got older, you know. And I think gaining that size and strength just kind of built that attitude even more, you know.
Now, from an attitude standpoint, you're saying, like, were you abrasive towards other people or competitive? Like the competitiveness came out too much?
And especially with football coaches.
Okay.
So I learned real early, you know, most football coaches, you know, they have this intimidation thing.
Yes.
They like to yell and intimidate guys to work. Well,
Yeah.
it didn't work with me.
Yeah.
You know, especially my junior, senior, I was already the strongest guy in the powerlifting gym. So some football coach wasn't going to intimidate me, you know, yelling at me. So I'd yell back.
It's a different perspective. Yeah.
You
absolutely.
know, and the other guys just didn't have that, you know, because they still kind of had that kind of fear of an adult, you know, an older man,
Sure.
you know. And I'm stronger than anybody. I know.
Yeah.
I don't care, you know.
Yeah.
And so it just brought out that honoriness even more. And I you know, from such a young age, growing up in the fab shop, I just always had to think that that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I liked doing. That's always that thing I was going to do. So I didn't really like school. Wasn't great at school.
Yeah.
I went to school and mom said, "You're going to graduate high school."
Yeah.
You know, I was afraid of her.
Yeah.
So,
of course. Yeah.
But, so, you know, I did the bare minimum to get through and graduate. Well, I had no plans of going to college or anything. And then time football's over with, I got these scholarships coming in.
Okay.
And first I'm like, I'm not interested. And finally I'm like, okay, maybe. I guess this is probably be a good thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Opportunity.
And I had a couple universities and just, you're thinking back, just how stupid you are as a kid, you know? And I had one, like the guy was, almost begging me to come up there and play.
Yeah.
And he's looking at my records. And I remember in my freshman year, starting my freshman year, they gave me, here's what your classes. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what's all this? I got to take all these classes. And they're like, well, that's so you're set up to go to college. And, you know, when you graduate, no, I'm not going to college. You give me the bare minimum what I got to do to get out of here. Well, fast forward 4 years later, that came back to haunt me.
Oh, boy.
So they looked at my transcripts and like, okay, you're gonna have to go to a JC this summer, take a couple classes, so you can be ready. You'll be ready to come here in the fall.
Okay.
And me being dumb kid, you know, go, wait a minute, I got to go to school.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm good. And just stupid, you know.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, there was like almost half the team, because we took second in state that year, our senior year. And so almost half the team got scholarships to a JC in Phoenix there. And bunch of guys finally talked me into going.
Okay.
They're like, come on, just come over here. So I reluctantly, okay. So I went over there and I put on some more weight. I was about 310, 315.
What position you play in football?
So I was playing D-line, and I love D-line.
Okay.
And so here was the problem when I went to the JC. The head coach at the time, his dad was a scout for the Chargers. And he said, they're looking for O-linemen. And he said, they're excited about your size. You know, and I could move at that size too when I was young. And he said, but we want you to switch over to O-line. I hated O-line. And here's the attitude, you know, just not being willing to just kind of roll with it and learn it, you know. And finally I was like, okay, I'll try it. And it just wasn't taken to. It was just a different mentality for me, where I've been much more of that aggressive, meaner mentality of
it makes sense. It makes sense.
So it just didn't work for me, you know.
Yep.
And so I was trying to talk to him, like, man, it's just not working for me. I just put me back on defense. That's where I'll excel.
Yeah.
You know? And it just kind of pissed him off, because that's where he wanted me on offense.
So he had a mentality that, like, all right, Jerry needs to be in.
If you're not going to do this, then like I'm not going to play you. So basically, so I
Sure.
set a couple games, didn't play. Like the last game, he put me in for maybe one play at the end of the game. And it was almost like an insult. You know?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I remember that next week I went to him. I said, you know, if I'm going to watch these games, I'll buy a ticket.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, just redshirt me and I'll be done.
Yeah.
It was only about not even halfway through the season. And then, so that was it. And then the next year I tried out for the Rattlers arena team.
Okay.
And at the time, they were bringing a bunch of veterans back. So they were taking like 2 guys. And they asked me to come back. So you come back next year, a lot of these veterans are going to retire, you know. Well, by the next year after that, I was really deep into powerlifting. I think that next year I did probably about 9 meets that year. So I really kind of got even more. I had bought the powerlifting gym that I had been training at. So I was running that too, as well as working in the fab shop. So I was really kind of invested in that by that point. Yeah. So I didn't go back after that, and I was kind of into the football.
Sure.
And then a few years later after that, you know, we're doing the race cars and helping my dad, and man, it's something I've always wanted to do. You know, is drive, you know, sprint car, and he was just not for it at all. So I built my own car and just went racing, and did it for a few seasons, won Rookie of the Year, and then I discovered strongman. And literally because I'd always been interested in strongman. I watched it growing up as a kid. Yeah. You know, but like I said, we didn't have social media or, you know, any way to, you know, so, yeah. And there was nobody, only reason I pounded with powerlifting because I popped into that gym, you know. Yeah. And so there was a strongman that it came up, it was going to happen in Phoenix. We'd heard about it, and this was 2008 at this point. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. We'll try this. It'll be fun, you know. And by this point, we were already doing some strongman implements for our powerlifting training.
So it was like an accessory.
We were doing farmer's walk, and okay. I had a makeshift yoke that I'd made, you know, that literally at pivot, you know. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty difficult to carry, but it was when we were noticing the carryover to the powerlifting.
That's interesting. And
so we found that. I'm like, all right, so I'm going to do that. And literally, I did the strongman on that Saturday morning, afternoon, you know, and had my race car trailer in the parking lot, did the comp, and then headed to the racetrack and raced that night. And I remember halfway through the main event, we got a yellow flag. Because when you're up to speed, your adrenaline's up and you don't notice it. And then we got the yellow flag and we're putting around, and my back is killing me. Oh, I'm loosening the shoulder harness, and I'm trying to, you're stretching the seat, you know. Yeah. Like, oh man, when is this thing gonna be over? Right. And then the light blinks and you pull them back tight and you go, and you kind of forget about once you get back up to speed. But oh man, I was hurting strapped in that car that night.
Oh, I bet. Well, I mean, I can. This is crazy. It's crazy. So I mean, you're doing so much.
Yeah. So I ran a couple more times that summer, and then I did some more. I was doing some more strongman competitions, and finally I was right there. I was like second, like at every one. Yeah. You know, and look, I didn't even have Atlas stones at the time, and I'm getting Atlas stones at these shows, and it's the first time I'm touching it. Literally, the first one I did, they had an Atlas stone, and this little buddy of mine, Pat, old powerlifter, we're looking at going, how are we going to do this, you know? Well, we picked up a lot of kegs, you know, messing with kegs in for training. So I'm like, I don't know. So I put chalk on, you know, and I go and I cup it, and I stone over bars for reps, and I just literally cup it. And I remember
what kind of weight you remember?
Probably like around 300.
Okay.
And I remember afterwards, the guys that put it on, that they all had a training crew, been training for a while. You know, they go, dude, you can't do that. You're going to tear a bicep. Yeah. I'm like, what are we talking about? I just did it. Like, you cannot do that with a stone. Yeah. You know, and I couldn't do it now if you made me. You know,
no, of course. Like that, you learned better. Yeah.
But, you know, good young biceps then, I got away with it. But I know, you know, a lot of the stuff like that, I just didn't know. Yeah. And so, you know, we got a little better with training, did a few more comps, and it was like, you know, I think I can do this. Yeah. If I really focus on this, I think I can do it. So I parked the sprint car and just went full bore strongman.
So how long did you race with a sprint car?
I think I ran about 3 or 4 seasons. Okay. I won Rookie of the Year. So first season I ran with one club, and then to kind of get going, it was kind of more of a somewhat entry level club. Yeah. And the next year I put the bigger motor in with more horsepower, went with the kind of the main club, and won Rookie of the Year with them the next year.
That's awesome.
And then sprint car was coming along pretty good. Yeah. And then, but like I said, the strongman kind of, you know, really had like
that. It's such a different thing.
Oh, it's huge.
Like way different.
Huge, yeah. But you know, it is and it isn't, because you know I've honestly compared what we do with other extreme sports. Yeah. You know, for what we put our bodies through. You know, it's a lot like what race car drivers would do. Like taking a bad ride in a race car and getting back in it.
Absolutely.
You know, we tear a bicep, come back out and pull deadlift afterwards.
That's a good point.
You know,
that's a good point.
Or a bull rider
that mentality.
Exactly. Yeah. Or a bull rider taking a bad ride, sure, and going back out the next ride. Absolutely. You know, without even giving it a second thought. You know,
just go do it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we talk to anybody else, you know, they're like, why do you keep doing that?
Yeah.
You have all these injuries and this and that, and why do you keep doing it?
Just keep getting beat up. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to them, right? And so it's any of those extreme sports. It just doesn't make sense to people.
That's a good point. That's actually a good point.
It's really we're all the same.
Yeah. So from that, I'm assuming you enjoyed the adrenaline rush of that racing too.
Oh yeah.
And winning. Right.
Yeah.
So again, it's an individual thing. I mean, granted, you got your team for the car.
You got a team, and you're
out there
mechanical with the cars and stuff. But but it's on you driving.
So you have to execute.
You screw up.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. So you're powerlifting, you're getting into sprint car racing, and getting into strongman. I mean, I've done
about everything dangerous you can do. I used to bounce when I was 18 in bars, repoed cars. I've done about everything dangerous you can do.
I'll tell you what, I watched, I can't remember what show it was on repoing cars. That looked like it could get a little hairy.
It's interesting. Yeah. You get some interesting,
people aren't too happy when you come to take their car.
Not very happy, especially if you knock on the door at midnight. Yeah.
Yeah.
to take their keys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like you showing up to a door at midnight to take some keys would probably get the job done.
Yeah. It's worth the extra. You get more money if you get the keys.
Okay.
So you get paid so much to get the car, which you can just grab the car and go.
Yeah.
Or you get a little more money if you get the keys as well.
It's worth getting the keys.
So it's worth going.
I like it. See, we could just follow you around with the camera, man. We could go relive some of this stuff. Yeah. Brian and Jerry repo cars.
Yeah. There'll be a lot of interesting moments.
Yeah. That would be good, man.
Yeah.
So did you, with the powerlifting side of things, you pushed that pretty far?
Yeah.
I mean, because a lot of the guys that I've talked to, like I actually went down when I first got out of college. I was trying to be a strength coach.
Yeah. And
so I went down to Arizona at ASU, and I was under Joe Ken there. And like, it's funny, he shared stories about you, like early days with powerlifting. He's like, yeah, Jerry was a strong dude, just strong forever. Yeah,
I was 18, 19 competing in open men.
That's impressive. Really impressive.
Yeah. And running top 3 in open men.
So it wasn't like you were just entering.
Meets.
I mean, you were actually going in there banging.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So how did you buy the powerlifting gym? So how did that come about?
I had an old car that actually my daddy gave me, and a buddy of mine were working on putting a motor in and stuff like that. It was an old 51 Merc.
Okay.
And so I actually sold that car to buy the gym.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Because the guy had it. Because originally, a guy, Michael Wanetti, had it. Mike had kind of come into some issues, so he had sold it to this guy, Rick Darrow, that had the other Thorbex in Scottsdale, which Thorbex has some history for powerlifting.
Okay.
They go back to 67, one of the oldest powerlifting clubs around, and had some great lifters like John Cole. John Cole was out of Thorbex.
Interesting.
He was the first to squat over 900 pounds.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, so they had a lot of great lifters out there. There's a lot of history out there anyways. Brick lived out east, and he was having a hard time coming to Avondale all the time to run the gym. So he's like, "Do you want to buy this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love it. It's where I want to be all the time anyway."
Absolutely.
So I just did whatever I could and sold that. Because the only thing I got is to sell this. That's the only thing I have. To sell that car. And then
what age were you?
About 19.
19 years old buying a gym. That's crazy. I mean, but again, I would imagine you probably were working and making money.
Yeah.
From the shop, right? Like at a younger age?
Well, I was doing everything. I was working the shop. I didn't make a whole lot of money in the shop.
Yeah.
But, because self-employed things kind of up and down. Mm-hmm. But I was working the shop. At the time, there was a guy that was training out of the gym that had a repo business. So I was repo for him at night. And then there's another buddy of mine that he would get me a spot every now and then bouncing at some bars there in town. So I did just anything I could for cash and money. Yeah, just anything.
So but still, at that age, man.
Because old hardcore powerlifting gym, it's not a huge profitable thing.
No,
you do it out of passion, not because this is going to be a moneymaker.
Yeah.
So I'm really doing other things to pay for it.
Sure. At the end of the day, you probably were more excited to get the equipment than keep your own training going.
Exactly. Just keep it going. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. So with powerlifting, what was the drive there? Because one of the things for me, for example, like I basically came out of basketball, just got into training heavy. Yeah. I loved the aspect, like what you mentioned earlier here. You put the hard work in, you see the results, and that got me so addicted. Yeah. I just love that, and I was in control, right? And I'd coming from a team sport, it was like I could go put the work in, I could get better. And it was all like, I needed to look myself in the mirror and say, Brian, you need to work harder, whatever.
Yeah, you get what you put in.
So, going from that then into strongman, I love the different aspects of the sport of strongman where you always had to adapt. The events were different. Everything was changing. And with powerlifting, did you ever get bored with just squat, bench, and deadlift?
So that's kind of how strongman kind of really came about.
Okay.
And because I was getting kind of bored with it. And then for several years there, because, he ended up becoming a really good friend, guy that runs WABDL. And so I was doing a lot of his meets, was just bench and dead. This is a push-pull meet. And then, so when the strongman come, I'm like, well, this is cool. This is a new challenge. We got to get 5-6 events figured out here.
Yep.
And it always, like I said, always had been, interested in strongman anyways, going watching it, and this is cool.
Yeah.
And then actually, okay, there is a circuit for this to do this, just didn't know about it. And then, so like I said, then after doing a couple of them, was like, I think I can do this. If I really, dedicate myself to this and keep improving on everything, and we got to get more equipment, I'll build whatever, and then and then it grew from there.
So basically you're entering contests at the beginning where you didn't have the equipment.
Yeah.
And it was, hey, I'm strong. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Jump into it.
Yeah.
And, from there, how well did you do right away? Because you said earlier it's like a couple second places. And,
yeah, literally, I think my first 3, I was second.
Okay.
And I was losing on stones because I didn't have a stone.
So you're just
like,
walking in there and
I was like,
trying to figure it out.
We got to make a stone. So then it was like, okay, there's no more screwing around. We have to make a stone. So then we made stones.
What was the first stone you made?
I think the first stone we made was an absolute disaster.
Okay.
Yeah, we couldn't even use it. It was so bad. And then I think the next one we made probably came out around 275 or something like that,
So I made my first ones. This is funny. I love these stories because I made one and it ended up being about, I think it was about 220. I had 2 of them, right?
Yeah.
One was 225 and one was 400.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a scale to weigh them, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, hey, that's the light one, that's the heavy one.
Yeah,
so
like
you can do reps very easy here, and if you can load the bigger one, you're doing good.
Yeah.
But that was my training. That was literally that's what you trained, right? I could do like 10 sets of 10 with the lighter one.
Yeah.
And the bigger one was you needed to warm up and get ready for that bad boy,
Yeah.
But later on, I didn't have a way to weigh them. Later on, I found out what they weighed.
How to weigh them, yeah.
But you get better at making that stuff
It's
and
always
figure it
interesting
out.
how it evolves. Like I said, the first yoke I made, because I never used one. So this is before I had done a strongman. I'm like, well, we'll make this thing. So I literally made it where the ends pivot. Like
That's
this.
crazy.
And it was horrible to carry.
Oh, I bet it's awful.
But by default, it made you pretty smooth at carrying because you could not upset it. Because if you stomped, they would swing. So it made you have a smooth glide. So like looking back at it, it was like, it wasn't a bad thing.
Sure. It just built that base.
Yeah. And then,
Now, did you, I'm assuming you built all of your own equipment at the beginning.
Everything.
So you'd go to a contest and say, hey, I got to make this, I got to make that, and then try to figure it out because there's no plans.
No. Yeah. It was just,
it's just you're try to figure it out.
Yeah. And then once I got going a little more, then it was like, okay, this one's coming up. They got these events. Okay, I don't have a Conan's wheel. I got to make a Conan's wheel. So then I got to just kind of look around to, see how I'm going to, build this thing, And then so I'd build a Conan's wheel and just, so that's why, now I have a boneyard of equipment because all the stuff I've made over the years.
I tell you what, you have been the guy where I've looked at your equipment and different things. We've had these conversations before, but it's like you'll come up with something and then build it. And I've always been a little bit jealous. Now, granted, I have been very lucky. I started training a guy that, had his own company here and he kind of took an interest in me and what I was trying to do. And he really, really helped me out with making some stuff. That has been a huge, and they're still actually helping out with like the Shaw Classic and that type of stuff now, which is amazing.
You have to have it.
You have to.
You have to have it.
Especially back then, there was no way.
Rogue
to
wasn't
buy
around to
no.
just go on Rogue and just buy whatever you need.
Nope.
It wasn't a thing.
Yeah. So you having that skill set, man. I mean,
it was a huge benefit.
Some of the stuff, we were talking about your frame that you made with the tires and that it literally, it's genius because it has the tires on it. You carry it and it resets itself. And I was thinking back, all the times that doing the heavy frame for the Arnold and that, how much of a pain it was.
Yeah.
You'd carry it and then you have to unload the thing, carry all the weights back down, carry the frame back down. And if it would have just had tires on it, genius. Well, I got to give you props on that.
The one, because, training kind of evolves, we started in the garage, and then we moved in the back of some people had a MMA gym. And then I finally went out, okay, I need to rent a space, so I rented an industrial space. So that first space across the yard, there was a load dock ramp there.
That's perfect.
So this is perfect for the Arnold, right? And so the first year training it for the Arnold, like we'd carry it up, and then we could strip all the weights off, take it down. And I'm like, man, this sucks.
It's got to be a better way.
Yeah. Well, I already by that point, had those wheels and tires with the hubs because we were doing it for axle press. I'm like, we already have the wheels and the hubs in them. If I just weld some round stock on the ends and pin them, this thing's on wheels. We'll just roll it back down.
Yeah.
And it's funny now, like everybody, oh, that's the coolest frame ever. I'm like, it's really just built out of necessity, just to make things easier so you get carried up and wheel it back down.
I tell you what, I mean, like I said, I should have come up with something like that because there's a lot of weight carried back and forth. It was a pain.
Yeah, you wore out time you get to go again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's awesome. So you're getting into strongman. First couple are done, building more equipment. Getting into it a little bit more seriously. Yep. Where did things go from there?
So that was 2008. I did my first one about May of 2008. And then I went to, I was second in the first 2 or 3 shows. And I qualified for nationals that year. And I walked into nationals, actually kind of cocky, like, okay, I think I'm going to do pretty good here.
Yeah.
And it was packed. I think there was 65 heavyweights or something. It was actually Van Hatfield's in Salt Lake.
Awesome.
And so huge comp, a ton of athletes. And I think overall I came in 15th or 16th. I zeroed the 280 log.
Oh boy.
Actually, I had Van call me here a couple of years ago. They had a conversation in the gym. And I guess one of the guys had looked back at some records and saw that. And he goes, hey, you got to clarify this for me. He says, they're trying to say you zeroed a 280 log. I'm like, I did.
Yep.
He said, no shit. I'm like, yeah. Did.
Yeah.
And but it was like I said, another one, a good humbling, okay, I got more work to do.
Absolutely.
Right. So now I really got to improve my overhead, so then I just focused on log press. That's kind of where the rack, doing log out of rack came from. I'm like, well, I'm just going to focus on the press, I think.
Yeah.
And I said, I think I can figure out the clean and put it together. That's not my problem. My problem was the press. So that's where that came from, and just kind of just evolved,
Absolutely.
And then I did Pro-Am, a couple Pro-Ams, came really close. I think my one in Dallas, the last one I think I did, Crusoe got me by just a half a point or a point in that one. And then I went into did California Strongest Man end of 2009, and I won every event. Finally it was all right, it had come along, I got it kind of covered at the amateur level.
Yep.
And then so I saw Ode had made a post about the Fit Expo that it was kind of open.
Yes.
And
that's right. They did change that. Yep.
Yeah. I emailed him and said, hey, can I do it? And he had asked, and someone told him, well, he just won every event at California's, so he said, yeah, come on. And so I went, and that was the first, kind of big show pro show I did was, 2010 Fit Expo.
Yep. And
first day I held my own okay. And all those guys just came from World's Strongest Man.
Yep.
And then I was tied for 7th going into, second day. Not great, but not horrible with these guys,
Absolutely.
And we go on the second day, and these guys are still pushing hard, and I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
We got another day of this, huh? So again, you learn. I got to get better. So it's just been an evolution of every year, every comp. I just learn more. That's why I tell guys, go compete. This is what you want to do. Go compete. You will learn so much about yourself, everything,
Absolutely.
Just go, and it'll evolve from there. You'll hear, oh shit, I got to work harder, or I got to do this or that.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it was.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, the Fit Expo, a lot of people I don't think realize how big in America at least how big that was huge.
It was one of our big shows back then.
Everybody trained for that. I mean, I remember going to that, and my first one was would have been 2007. I guess around there, and then I did it for a few years. But I remember it's just the beginning of the year. Normally it was January, maybe early February, and all the American guys trained hard to get ready for that. And then it was,
and you'd have some international guys that would come too.
Yes,
Terry and Felix and LPJ back then. A bunch of those guys would come down and do it.
Yeah, which it was so good to get a measuring stick, though. Yeah. As far as where you were at, and it was a great way to push to get better. And then it was a qualifier at some years not for the Arnold.
That's what got me to the Arnold. Yeah, I won it in 13 and 14, and it put me to the Arnold.
Yep. And see that's it's one of those things. It's like having those type of contests where you can kind of level up and get against that competition, and then open the door potentially for, you know, the bigger contests, right? Like get up to even the next level, which is amazing, you know?
Yeah, and I feel, unfortunately, for some of these guys right now, they're trying to get up there. There isn't that right now.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I think like you doing the one at the Classic is going to be great.
Yeah.
It gives guys a shot to get on that stage the following year.
I tell you
we
what,
need more of that because you know there was always a thing when I was coming up through, because I didn't do the traditional way of, you know, I started with Strongman Corp, you know, to go after the whole pro card thing.
Yep.
And then there was a whole thing. There was nothing that like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do it that way. It just way it happened for me.
Well, the door opened for something
so I went to
else.
the Fit Expo, and then I did, you know, Nick and Callie's show.
That's right.
And I won it.
What was that, 2013?
12.
12. Okay.
I won Sin City, and then that was a Giants Live qualifier.
Yep.
That put me in Poland in 2012 for Giants Live, and that qualified me for World's Strongest Man the first year in 12.
Absolutely.
So it's just, and then the next year in 13, I won the Fit Expo. That put me to the Arnold.
Yep.
You know, and it's just, this is the way it happened for me because of shows that were available to us at the time.
Yeah.
You
and
know?
see, that's you're exactly right. And you touched on there, and I've said this for a while. I feel like, at least in America, that I don't know what you want to call it, intermediate, let's call it that, right? Level, where it's like, okay, you can do nationals, you can do well there, win nationals, whatever.
Yeah.
But making the jump to the biggest stages, right? World's Strongest Man, Arnold, you know, now trying to get the Shaw Classic on that same level.
Yep.
This is where, you know, we've kind of talked about it and said, hey, it's open, right? Open qualifier. You want a shot, you want an opportunity, come in. We're doing an online qualifier. You get there, you get on that stage and you prove it, right? But it's the strongest will win, right? And then you get the open door. And I'll tell you what, like if you can come in and prove it, then you can get there. And I think that's kind of like your path in a way is like, hey, I'm strong enough to get in here, do the Fit Expo, right? I do well with the Fit Expo, it opens this door. I do this other contest, it gets me to Giants Live, gets me to World's Strongest Man. And that's what we need. We need more of that.
I earned every spot I got.
100%.
There was no give me's.
No.
You know, and it's just the way it was.
Yeah.
You know, but it started this thing with Strongman Corp that, oh, he's not, you know, AAC Pro, and then he went.
I remember all that.
Yeah,
I remember
and it was nothing personal. It was just the way it happened.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like, I'm not going to do this. I had been doing them, and these other shows popped up, and I won them, and I went to bigger stuff.
Yeah.
You know, just the way it was.
It was neat. I mean, for me, when I feel like things changed quite a bit because when I turned pro, 2006, in 2007, there was a lot of pro contests, right? So I was able to compete. I can't remember how many times. It was definitely over 10 to 15 times in different things, but it was, whether it was a pro-am here in the United States or a pro show here or there, not massive prize money or anything, but I got that experience like you were just talking about of going and competing as a pro in the United States.
Crucial.
But I would call that kind of like an intermediate, right? It's like technically I have my pro card, but you're competing against other guys that got their pro card before World's Strongest Man, before that. And that gave me a lot of experience, but those shows kind of went away, right? Like those things kind of went away. And, you know, I know some of the guys that have come to train with me, you know, say, well, gosh, if you get your pro card, the opportunities go away because you're not able to compete in anything. You kind of focus on hopefully America's Strongest Man. But from there, where do you branch out? Where do you get that experience? And I feel like a lot of competitors, that pro card is like the end of their competing. It's like, hey, I got my pro card. I don't know if I can make the leap to World's Strongest Man or get to a bigger stage or whatever. So what am I going to do? What can I focus on? What's my next goal? And so that's kind of, you know, at the heart of it, what I would like to see is some of these other competitors, you know, if you're good enough, you're strong enough, come compete. Hey, we're taking 16, you know, and we're not only doing it for the men, but we're doing it for the women too, right? Because I think the women need to have that stage and something to shoot for as well. So I think it's going to be a good thing.
I mean, I
hope people jump on it and get excited. So
I've had this conversation. I'm sure, you know, not happy when I voice my opinion, but I feel that they're doing a lot of these younger guys a disservice, you know, by they get a pro card early, you know, and they need all that time to really hone those skills, learn it, you know, to do these bigger shows, you know, and doing, you know, a little bit bigger shows. Because then, you know, if they do get the opportunity to go to a, you know, not so much now, but, you know, go to an Arnold or a Giants Live and they haven't done anything in a while and they have a bad performance and they forget about them, which not their fault, because they don't have the experience, and so it's really a disservice to them by not having something for these guys to do.
The thing is that it kind of sharpens you up, right? You do those contests and you learn, hey, I've got something to work on here. I've got something to work on there. Or, hey, I'm doing pretty good here. Let's focus some attention. Yep. But in order to be a well-rounded strongman, you got to be good at everything.
Yep.
And you can't have these holes, and you can't pick and choose. For example, with World's Strongest Man, let's just say they announce the events and I don't like one of the events. I don't get to go tell them, hey, I don't like that event. Take it out. I'm not doing the show.
Yeah.
I have to get better, right? And that's how it always was for me. And I think that mentality for some of the younger athletes, and even this is even at like the amateur level, right? You know what? Sign up. Like, you failed that 280 log. I did my very first pro-am I ever did, right? I was 2 months into the sport, and it was a pro-am. It was a 300-pound log for reps. I didn't have a log to train with. Didn't have anything. I'll tell you what, I cleaned that thing about 4 times, which I thought I was doing pretty good. Never pressed it. So I zeroed that. But I wasn't scared of entering the contest, though. I knew that would be hard for me, right? But I was bound and determined. Then from that point, I then came home and I ordered a log. I saved up some money and ordered it. Wasn't great, but I got it. And then I trained it and I got better. And I'm sure you did the same damn thing. It's like, just like you said, hey, I got some work to do on overhead. I'm going to bang overhead. And guess what? You got better. And it's kind of that quality of going and compete and being competitive. And being okay with saying, hey, I have to get better at this. I have to get better at that. But, as far as moving the sport forward, I think if we can open some doors up, for some of these other competitors, it'll be really interesting to see what they can do.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a great opportunity for them. But, I think the most important thing with that is the young guys coming up, or these young athletes, is you have to be able to take some humility. You learn from it. You need to take it, and go, okay, that's where I got to get better. Because I remember looking at that 08 at Nationals, and with a buddy of mine, Pat, we're looking at the events and going, holy shit. It was like an 850 yoke or something. I don't think I'd done more than over 7 at the time, And I wrapped my knees. It was the most miserable 60 feet of my life, but I got through it, And it was like, okay, we got to start pushing heavy yoke now. And then like the log, zeroing the log. We got to start working on log. And, so he's evolved, But you have to be able to take that and not be afraid to go try.
Absolutely.
And go, okay, and then come back and work harder on it. And then if you need the equipment, find a way to get the equipment, whether you're saving up to buy it or find somebody to help you make it or whatever it is, you figure out how to get it done. If you want something bad enough, you will figure it out no matter what. I've had how many people go, how do you work a full-time job and, sleep 4 or 5 hours a night and have kids and all that? I'm like, this is what I want to do. I don't have an option. I don't have an option not to have kids and not work a full-time job,
Absolutely.
what more than just, that what Strongman was going to bring it back then, And I'm like, so it's one way I got to do it. I don't have a choice. So I can either go, I just don't have time for it and not do it, or I just get it done.
I mean, it's crazy looking back. And I mean, it sounds like your story is so similar to mine, like in a way, because, I'm starting out at the beginning when I, first got into Strongman. It was certainly nothing was handed at all, right? And I had to save up money. I had to have a guy weld some stuff out of his garage. And, that type of path is tough because I had, come back and, stuff with strength and conditioning. That path was open, but it didn't work like at the time because I was going into debt. I was, trying to make something happen that wasn't happening easily. And, I came back and started working actually with my brother. So I was doing like commercial HVAC, climbing up and down a ladder, something that, a guy my size is probably not well suited to do. But hey, man, I needed to make money. So as you get up, I'd pack a cooler, go to work. I had to eat the contents of that cooler by the time it was done. And then I would go get home, get to the gym, close the gym down, go to sleep, wake up and do it again. I had no life. I literally had no social life. I remember on the weekends, my buddies would say, oh, we're going to go out to the bars. We're going to go out and do this. And I was like, hey, I got to sleep. I got to train tomorrow. And that was a sacrifice for me that I was willing to make. But in hindsight, I don't know if it was a sacrifice because it's what I wanted to do. Right. I was willing to pay that price and I could see where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Right. I could see the vision. And so I would put the hard work into training and open that door. And like you just said, if you want something bad enough, you can make it happen.
Yeah, no matter
right.
What.
And that's too many people, I think, if it's not easy, if it's not handed to you, if it's not kind of wrapped in a bow, here you go. Here and even then, some people, if as easy as it is now to get access to stuff. So
many excuses on everything. You know, like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. I mean, I remember the one pro-am I did in Dallas, I believe it was 2009. I had no business going. The way things were financially for me at the time were not good. You know? I literally left Phoenix with probably maybe about $70 in my pocket. And to get there, I can't rent a car because my account's dead until I get paid on Friday.
Yeah.
You know, and so I get, you know, a taxi to the hotel. You know, I'm staying, you know, a little Motel 6. Yeah. I've got to hustle them to let me check in, to promise them that on Friday I'm going to have some money in there.
Wow.
You know, and this is night before the contest. It's like a Thursday night. We're starting on Friday.
Yeah.
I walk over to the Denny's. And I'm literally ordering off like you kind of pick your own
99-cent menu.
Yeah, you know, picking, and then they're like, "Do you want something to drink?" And I'm like, "No." And like they felt bad for me, so they go, "You can never give you water." I'm like, "Well, okay."
Yeah.
You know, so they had like $12 to buy some food, you know. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, most guys wouldn't do that. You know, there's no way they would.
No chance.
You know, but I did think it's like I'm gonna go do this. You know, and you know,
well, it's a testament to you, man. I mean, it's something like I have nothing but respect for that because I know how hard I had to work to get there. And I think, you know, a lot of people would probably look at me, maybe look at you and say, you know, God, Jerry's been there for how many years and he's been a mainstay and, you know, has been at the Arnold and been at Worlds and done all this different stuff and is known for these big lifts and performances. And it wasn't easy, right? Like paving that road, man, like there's a lot of hardship and sacrifice and dedication that people don't see.
Yeah.
Right. It's because, you know, especially for you too. And I would say this even now, I mean, you're not a guy that puts a lot of stuff out there that talks a lot. I tell you what, like you work and you work hard, right? And you work hard with life, but you also work hard with training and you put it in.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and this is very true with you, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. Right. Yeah. And that's just the way it is. Like that's, and, you know, like over the years, it's the more that I've competed with you and seen you go through life and go through, you know, I mean, you'll put up training. It's like, hey, I competed on Saturday back in the gym. Here it is. It's time to go. Right. Yeah. You know? And so it's just kind of one of those things that, you know, it's respectable after it. And, you know, there's, you know, I know for myself, I'm the same way, man. It's like, there's no excuse. I'm not missing training. I'm putting it in. And so any guys that can bang like that and come back and go, it's nothing but respect because I know the mentality that it takes because some days is not easy. Yeah. And you definitely sometimes don't feel like doing it, but there is no choice. You just go do it.
Yeah. Well, I think those are the days that make you. Mm-hmm. You know, if you can get into the days that are tough because the days are easy. That's fun.
Absolutely.
You know, those days. But, you know, the days you're dragging and you still get it done. And still being kind of a good day out of it. When you're going in going, today is not going to be a good day. And you get going and then it's kind of a slow warm up and build up and then you end up having a great day and going, oh, shit, that was good.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, no, it's over the years, especially when we are traveling so much, doing so many shows, it became a joke at the gym because we deadlift on Mondays no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, it don't matter if I get off a plane Monday afternoon, we deadlift Monday night. You know, so the text will go out in the group like, I know this is a stupid question, but we deadlifted tonight.
Absolutely.
You know? And I'm like, you know, it's Monday. I'm like, that's what I thought. All right, we'll be there.
Oh, that's great, man. So after you made it to World's Strongest Man, right, you kind of get to that spot at the top. What did you feel with that?
That was, I mean, a huge accomplishment to get to Worlds.
Yeah.
Pretty unprepared because I went as a reserve.
Yep.
And then really getting thrown in that morning. Yeah. I remember going down there that day of, and they ran me out of the athlete area. They're like, "Oh, this is for competing athletes only." So I'm standing there watching the first, you know, groups go, and finally I'm like, I go back up to the room, started, you know, packing up the kids and everything. They were going to head back to Arizona, and because, you know, we were in LA that year, and you get a call at the room, Bryce is calling for you. So I go down and he goes, Well, he's out. You're in. Josh Stinpeg had tore bicep the day before, familiarization. Didn't say anything. Was hoping to start the heat, but the bicep was so bad he couldn't pick up a barbell. And I'm like, okay, well, what event we got? Then he goes, I don't know. You got to go ask him. So I go ask Josh. And Josh was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't worry about it. What do we got? You know.
Yeah.
And I got to run back up to the room, grab my bag, and come back. And
that's so crazy. I remember Josh pulling out, but I didn't know that was the notice that you got.
It was literally an hour beforehand. They ran me out of there, and then an hour later, they're crossing out Josh's name, writing my name in. Somebody's going, "What's your name again?" They're writing it in, and handing me the monitor, and and they go, "Where's your shirt?" And I go, "I don't have a shirt." And they're really yelling at Josh to take his shirt off,
give it to you,
because his other shirts are in his room.
Oh my
gosh! You got to go get them. And he throws me his shirt, and then so then a little over an hour later, I'm standing in front of a camera, getting ready to do the first event at World's Strongest Man.
That's crazy, man. So
yeah.
Literally just waking up, not even knowing, and then here you go.
Thrown right into it, yeah.
That's crazy.
And then, so the first event wasn't great. It was a load medley, wasn't great. Then the second event was an arm over arm truck pull, which was a really good event for me, especially at the time.
Yeah.
And I won it. Then the next day we had a good squat, and it's had a few good events, but it's just not enough all overall to get in the final.
Yeah.
But I said not prepared for it at all.
Sure.
No event. I mean, I was just training going into it, but had no idea what the events were.
But you probably gained so much experience from that, just going to Worlds, because Worlds is a different format than anything else.
So much, because you can tell right away, okay, this isn't the normal contest. This doesn't pace the same as a normal contest. There's no way to pace it. Every time you think you got it paced, they stop for 30 minutes to range cameras. So I was like, okay, so you learn a bunch. And then the next year, and Sanya, I did. Giants Live Britain's Strongest Man literally 2 weeks before. It was second. And then got the invite to Worlds, fly home to Thrash to get visas for China and everything, to a week later fly to China. So again, not prepared at all, just coming off that. So it wasn't until finally 14 went into it more prepared. I had a spot, had somewhat of an idea what the events were going to be. Then, had a good run at the heat, got in the final. And then the final wasn't a great one for me. But it was a learning thing. Then it was another learning thing. So I had the learning thing of the heats.
Absolutely.
Well, now this is a new one of having 2 days off to go into 2 more days of events.
Absolutely.
So then it was another learning thing too. So I said always you're learning more and more.
Yeah, you make the first final is always different.
Yeah,
and I remember that was a hard. For me, it was a lot of learning as well, because I remember my tank was kind of empty, because you've already competed. Well, at that point, it was 4 days of qualifying, and then you had the days. It was either a day or two off, and then I think in 2009 it was 3 days of finals they did, and I think that year was 7 events. I'd have to, but anyway, it was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot. So by the end of it, I remember the last day waking up and saying, "Wow, I'm having a hard time getting pumped up here."
Yeah,
to go. So just putting yourself through that. I remember I stayed my first year at World's Strongest Man in 2008. I stayed for the final. Yeah. And I was actually, they had picked me as the reserve, I think, for the final that year, which was cool. But I was basically, I got the experience, right, of being there.
I see it, yeah.
And, that year they had the big plane pull, the Hercules C-130.
Oh, yeah.
So I had gone out and tested that thing before, right, to make sure it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Me and I don't know if you remember Richard Skoog. Yeah. But we had gone out and pulled this thing, whatever. And I remember the day of the final starting. Of course, I'm a little beat up, and I think I'd gone out with the guys, because they have that party after, and I didn't sleep a lot. I remember I stayed up kind of late, and I was going down to just watch. And Colin was like, "You got your pulling shoes?" And I said, "For what?" And he said, "Well, we need you to test the plane again before the guys go, right? You need to go out there, and we have to make sure it moves, because we made an adjustment or whatever, right, for the pull." And I was like, "God, I just tested this thing. I'm pretty beat up. I didn't sleep a lot, but hey, I'll grab my pulling shoes and whatever." And I remember they had all the crowd out there, and I was like, "God, I better not fail this damn thing." So I pulled it, and he's like, "You got to pull the whole thing too, because we need to make sure you can finish." Yeah. Which they used to do. They should do that more. A couple of those have come back to bite them with not having them finish the whole pull. Because if it's a little uphill at the end with a plane that big, but Anyway, it was a valuable experience for me staying there for the final, watching the guys, but it's still not the same as actually going through it.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like I learned a lot. But again, if you're going to all these contests, you get thrown in different situations. You travel to a different country. You deal with time changes, jet lag, maybe not sleeping the best. And all of that certainly could be an excuse, right? But it can't be an excuse.
It can't be.
The opportunity's there, and sometimes it's just got to be go time, you know, to make it happen. So it's interesting to hear you say that. So to gain that experience over those first couple of years with Worlds, and then, you know, I mean, God, working up, man, you know, I feel like you consistently came back to the Arnold doing better, you know, just getting stronger. Like you were a guy that I feel like just kept getting stronger. Right. Like it was kind of like, come back. Okay, Jerry's going to be stronger. Like it was a consistent improvement is how I felt with you. Is that kind of how you felt? Or going into training, what was your mindset?
No, definitely. It seemed like it got better. There was a lot of years at especially Arnold's that unfortunately didn't see my best performances. I mean, I don't know how many years in a row there for like some of those. I would get sick every like January, February, and I'd be struggling through training, just sick as hell, you know. And then, you know, the way things were at the time, you know, I wouldn't get to Columbus till Thursday night most of the time, you know. And there was one time there was a flight that got canceled. I didn't get there until Friday morning, you know, to go, you know, start Friday afternoon. So all those don't help, but is what it is. I didn't complain about it online.
And we were talking about this yesterday, actually, a little bit. I mean, your travel schedule, and that was just because you had to pick up your son, right? Yeah. It was kind of one of those things, and that was just what you had to do.
Just what it is. I couldn't pick him up till 2:00, and it's just the way things were at the time. And so, and you know, looking back, I still had to do the same thing again because they've always come first.
Absolutely.
Know? So it's just it is what it is. You know? So,
but going in there, I mean, it's just one of those things. You know, to do that, to travel in, you got a little bit of a time change there. You know, going in and arriving a little bit late, but again, you just got to make it happen.
I think literally 17, the year I was third. What was the first year that I got to fly in like Thursday morning and kind of be there all day and do rules and acclimate a little bit and eat and then and start the thing kind of fresh Friday. And that was the difference. I was third. You know. Yeah,
you had a good contest that year. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And honestly, in my opinion, I know probably a little one-sided because it was a good contest, but I think that it was the last heavy year of the Arnold. Yeah. It was the last heaviest year. That was a heavy year.
It's another interesting conversation, you know, that we could have. I mean, I think that the sport in general, and I said this a little bit before, you know, after 2017, because 2017 at World's Strongest Man was heavy, very heavy, very hard. Same thing with the Arnold. I mean, this is big weights. You know what? 1140 on the frame.
1140 frame. The two yokes. You know, 13 something, and then the 1565.
1565.
That was day one.
Yep, that was day
max
one.
Deadlift the next day.
I remember that actually because I had to get adjusted by Todd because my clavicle was kind of out of place from that frame carry. Yeah, you know, because you're strapping in at that kind of weight, and you know, again, literally just those numbers, right? Like, let's just say those numbers one more time. 1,565 pounds on the yoke.
After the 13, what was it? The first round was 1320 or something like that?
Yeah, second round,
so the second round was 1565.
Yeah. So you're doing that and an 1,140 pound frame up the ramp. Yeah. So massive, massive weights. Then you're going to sleep and waking up and doing 3 more events that are heavy.
To start with a max deadlift.
Yes, max deadlift. Yeah. And so, I mean, this is the thing now that's heavy. That's heavy, and it shifted. It just flat out shifted in 2018.
430 on the Austrian Oak for reps. That night.
Yep. And at the end of the day, in 17.
Yeah, in 17.
Yeah. And then so you shift, and this is the thing is, things do change, right?
Yeah,
and in the sport, it's interesting looking back, because kind of when I was coming in, they really didn't do a lot of maxes. It was a lot more reps, a little bit more of endurance type of stuff. And then it just kind of gradually got heavier, right? So, doing worlds kept getting heavier. And people used to, I remember they would kind of talk down about worlds a little bit and say, hey, it's not as heavy. But I mean, worlds still, and I mean, 2015, that was an 1,100 pound yoke carry.
Yeah, it was heavy.
And
it was the heaviest year of the Stones.
Heaviest year of the Stones. Yep. So they bumped everything up. Everything went up, and that was, same thing. Max log, right? In that contest, really heavy deadlift for reps was a 8. Was that 815?
815.
815 for reps. So I mean, you're just talking like
off the stiff bar with the drums,
big time.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be strong. So this is the thing: is World stepped up their game, but Arnold was definitely at that point. You're walking in there, and some of the events you're doing, you have the 10 guys there, and some of them can't do them.
No, yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, everybody's gonna start it or whatever. Some just you literally can't move it.
Yeah. Well, I think on the 1565 that year on the yoke, I think only 3 or 4 of us completed it.
Yes,
if I remember right.
Yep. Which is, in all fairness, and this I've said this before publicly, I think in strongman you should have at the top level a rule of thirds.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have 3 or 4 completing, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Really. And then, the next 3 guys do okay.
Yeah.
And then you have 3 guys that struggle.
Yeah.
Right. Out of 10, it's kind of, you kind of cut it down like that. And you're really finding out at that point who on that event is the strongest on that event. There's a clear cut. You can visually see this guy is stronger than that guy. Right.
And, and there was another one. There was one that, talk about like putting something in to make you get stronger. Because I remember like 15 was the first year of the yoke. If I remember right, we started doing the 2 rounds of the yoke.
14. I think it was 14. Yep.
We're there 14, 15, yeah. I remember the first year, I think it was like 12 something was the first one. And I just came off the Fit Expo, so I didn't really have a good training run, for the Arnold to like dial in the Arnold. I think we had like 1,100 at the Fit Expo. And so at that time, it was the heaviest that I had tried. I remember as soon as I pushed it off the ground, from where the bar set down about 6 inches, everybody went,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, shit.
Yes.
And I picked it again. I took maybe a step or 2, and then I couldn't go anymore. It hurt so bad. And then, so each year after that, and so the next year it was a little bit better.
Yep.
Then, next year a little bit better. Then finally I was like, okay, I got to get better at this damn yoke.
Yep.
So I literally brought the yoke inside the gym, because normally like it's the thing we do outside. And I'm going to do short carries every week inside the gym.
Yep.
And I'm going to go to failure. And so that's what I did. I went and we set aside the gym, and we'd go, throw around the plates, back, throw around the plates, and just back to short carries. And it finally built my yoke up, and I mean, I think it was 16 or 17 training for the yoke. I tore an oblique.
Oh boy.
Pushing like 1350 off the ground. I pushed off the ground. I felt like kind of gave. And so I mean, it beat the hell out of me doing it. Yep. But man, once I got up to that level where that 17 finished in the 1565, going back to the regular shows that had 1,000, 1,100, it was a drag race.
Oh, it's yeah.
Like
well, you just get you're forced.
Yeah,
you're forced to step up.
It made me get stronger on that and get better at that.
Yeah,
because I'm like, no, I'm tired of getting my ass kicked on this yoke. Like,
yes.
I'm going to get better at this thing.
Yeah, and that's again, it just goes back to the conversation of the 280 log, 300 log.
Yeah,
you fail the thing, you get better, and it's just obviously a drastically different weight and event and everything. But if your back's against the wall, you got to step up. Yeah. And if you want to do better, again, you can only look at yourself and say, hey, I've got to address this and I've got to get better and attack it. And, it's interesting, the shift in the sport. And I think as things go on, some people don't remember back, and it's weird because you're talking 2017 now. That's 5 years ago already. Yeah. Right. So, everything kind of shifted, everything changed at World's Strongest, not only Arnold, but at World's Strongest Man, it went from drastically heavy in 17 to much lighter. Yeah. And it just, I shouldn't say, much lighter, I guess. They did have a max overhead there and, some other stuff, but it wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same.
Yeah. No, I mean, everything was heavy that year, especially to start off day one like that.
Yes.
I remember we get out day one and I was trashed.
Yes.
I'm like, how the hell am I going to deadlift tomorrow?
Yeah.
I remember I went and saw Todd.
Yeah.
And he worked me over. I remember leaving there going, I don't know if that was good or bad. Like I might be worse now.
Right.
And I woke up in the morning, not too bad. Back feels better, but my hamstrings were really tight.
Yeah.
And we started going on deadlift, and hamstrings was extremely tight. Like I'm gonna tear a hamstring today. I got to be really careful.
Yep.
And I think I opened like 921 or something like that. It moved okay, but they won't let go.
Yep.
And it was like 960 something, same thing.
Yep.
And then I'm looking at my training partner. I'm like, I don't know, dude. I think we're just gonna call it safe.
Yeah.
So I did like 981. if I remember right. And they pulled it, everything opened up. It was great. I walk it over to him, I go, we wasted it. Like, now we're good. Now we're warm and ready.
Isn't that crazy?
And then that's when, Jan walked over and was like, you want to take the shot at the record, that 10:31.
Yeah.
Shit, I feel good now. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, on a day, it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
After doing everything we did at day one, that should have happened at that.
Absolutely.
If you're looking at it on paper, you would never go, this is not going to happen.
I was that day, I think I was kind of surprised going into that. I was kind of surprised on your calls on that event, because I think I ended up winning the event.
You won the deadlift.
991?
I think it was like
986
if I remember right, because I did 981 and that you were going after me, so
I was one above you.
Yeah, you just had to go to the next pull above me,
and then you did that 10:31. I was like, well, it didn't
make sense at all.
No.
But like I said, my hamstrings were so tight. I'm like, I'm going to tear one. I knew it. I knew I was going to tear one.
Yeah,
because it was for warm ups, the first 2 attempts, and it's like, dude, I don't know what to jump. I'm talking with trainer partner. He goes, and he was, we trained together so long, like he could watch me. He goes, hey,
just body language and mental.
Yeah, I'm being timid, And then it was that all of a sudden 981, it just opened up and like, oh shit, now we're
good.
Now we're good.
Which was, 10:31 on that bar was awesome, man.
And then that moved even better. Like, it was just one of them freak deals that just shouldn't have happened. But yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, you go back and you go through these things and you like little stuff like that people never get to hear about. Yeah. It's kind of like in 2016 on the elephant bar, and that's the elephant bar deadlift we're talking about. Yeah. For anybody listening, but it's kind of I remember 2016 was the first year of that bar.
Yeah.
And I remember mine, I was so, and people afterwards like, why didn't you pull more? But it was the first year of the bar.
Yeah.
And, I probably should have gone, because my 10:21 that I pulled that year in 16 was so smooth and comfortable for me. And Eddie ended up being in the position where he had opened so damn heavy that he had the luxury of just calling, and he pulled 10:26, because then that was where you broke that with 10:31. But, it was watching his pull, I was just sitting there like, man, I know I had more in the tank.
Yeah.
But that's the way it works when you're calling your numbers.
Yeah.
And again, just like if that would have opened up before, I probably would have had to pull heavier than whatever it was, 980, 990 to get you in that event, or you would have pulled more than me in the event and won the event. But, it's kind of like, I guess you ended up getting paid for the record, which is good.
Yeah, I guess right on the end of
it. Not a bad thing.
Just missed out on the point. But
yes. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. So kind of working your way up through those years. And then, I feel like we need to talk about World's Strongest Man in 2020.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was kind of a performance for you that was really, really good.
That was great. As bad as the whole, pandemic and all that was, the one thing it did do for, because I was doing, a bunch of shows a year, doing their whole Arnold circuit, so it was just one after another, and you're always nursing something, and so just getting able just to train, during all that, all the lockdowns and all the BS that was going on, and just got better, and just focused. And as it got closer, okay, Worlds is going to happen now, and could just focus on it and not have all these other shows to worry about, or am I going to get a spot? Am I not going to get a spot? Or, and just hone in on it, and just the difference it makes, right?
Yes.
Versus other shows over the years where I haven't had that luxury.
Yep.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah. Walking into that one, I feel like that was obviously a weird year for all of us. And it's kind of like, oh, it's supposed to happen in May. No, it's not happening in May or June or whatever it was. And now it's bumped back to November. And, but you competed, I feel like, how many average shows did you do? Like I would going up through 2019, let's say.
Especially, 19, 18, 17, because I was doing the whole Arnold circuit. So I would do all of them, plus, maybe a Giants Live or so in there too.
Yeah.
So I was going almost every month somewhere, it seemed like.
Were you getting close to 10? Was it?
Probably by, especially 18, 19. Yeah.
Cause that's crazy, man. Yeah. To me, I tried to, have tried to, even though it's hard, to not go past like 5 in a year, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And now I'm even more, selective and I just feel like it's something that's smart. You put those miles on.
You got to be smart and to be selective, and I had, the mentality like, I'm going to go get it while I can.
Of course.
Yep. And so this isn't going to last forever. So I'm going to go get it while I can. And it was fun, but I could have had, some better performances if I would just honed in on some bigger ones probably.
Absolutely.
But it was all right. I got to travel the world and do a ton of contests and compete all over the world doing it.
Well,
so.
if you had to say, and I know this is a tough question because people ask me this too, but what was your favorite country, favorite contest that you got to do?
I still say probably competing in England is one of the coolest.
Okay.
Is because the fan base over there.
Now, was that at the deadlift world championship?
Like the deadlift championships or like in Wembley in 19.
Okay.
Is the fan base over there? They're true diehard. Not that we don't have some great ones here as well.
Absolutely.
But there's a ton there.
People are coming out. I mean,
we're getting more here, and I think having shows like the Classic and stuff like this, if we're going to help grow it here, because then I guess they have a place to go watch it.
Absolutely.
Where they didn't have that before. So I think it's going to grow even more, and then. With YouTube and stuff, it's coming along. With the show you guys did on the History Channel, all those things have helped. Some of the documentaries the guys have done, it's all helped.
What's interesting about it, and you're touching on a really interesting point, is I think a lot of people are fascinated by strength and strongman in general, world's strongest man. But it seems, and even for us when we were started, it's something you watch on TV, but it seems so far away. There's no connection to. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to see this, because there's nothing like, in my opinion, and again, I've done this as a competitor, but you talk to people that watch a contest in person, right? And some of the impressive feats of strength that you get to watch with your own eyes, sitting in the crowd like that. There's just nothing like it. I mean, you're watching a guy do something crazy, lift a weight that is just something you can't really imagine. And like you said, at least in the States, you've had other, contests, obviously the Arnold, where you're going to an expo, you're watching the event and that type of thing. But, for us, I feel like the difference really has been those big arena shows where you're getting to see the top guys perform and bang it out. And, they
can kind of interact with the guys a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, you connect.
Because they're not
you start
on stage
connect
somewhere, but so it's different for them.
I hope it does, man. I mean, it really is something, I really want to grow the sport and give back, right? Give back to the guys, give it, a good thing. And so, we'll see. Everybody seems to be real pumped about the Shaw Classic this year. And I can't wait to have it come to life again. And, going to the Budweiser Event Center, it's going to be a bigger venue, more opportunity for fans, athletes, and all that.
So even greater,
I can't wait, man. It's going to be, that, I mean, you were here the first year, and your deadlift battle with JF.
Oh, the energy in that room that day, man. I mean,
it's literally, I'm like talking about it. I'm like, and I was,
it was really cool to see, how all the competitors in there became fans.
Yes.
And just the energy in there where, I mean, it would turn in just like, like a crazy training day,
right.
For buddies.
It was, there's nothing, it's hard to explain. It's literally like that moment, that day. Well, that contest in general is just kind of like one of those things that's hard to explain, and seeing you guys, like you said, I turned into a fan, right? It was like, certainly not like on that deadlift, at least it's not my best performance, whatever, but sitting back and watching you guys do your thing and just like, I had planned for the weights and I was like, well, there's nobody that's going to touch, that kind of, I think we're going to stop around this. Yeah. Luckily, I had brought extra weights. We had enough there because you guys just kept can you top this? Like it's going up and up.
It was the same thing. It was like you wouldn't have predicted it.
Nope.
Day 2,
That's what I said. I was like, it's day 2. We've already done a max log. We already did a heavy yoke and farmers. Right. How you're not going to have it there. But you guys stepped up, man, and that electricity. Like I feel like last year too, with having the crowd. Oh yeah. Everybody. You could just tell how in just
great crowd, and you get just a different energy in there, especially when everybody's into it.
Oh,
and
so
they're
awesome.
genuine fans of the sport. They just love seeing the feats that they're witnessing, and it's the energy you can't replicate or
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's. it's interesting to see it grow, man. And I really hope that it does, because it's a good way to give back to the sport, give back to the athletes, but also to the fans. And once they have that connection, I mean, I think last year we did some, like a survey and sent out to a lot of the people that came.
Yeah.
And I literally think every single person, if they have the weekend open, they're coming back.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's not like, oh, I had kind of a good time, but I'm not going to come. It's like, if I was there, I want to be back, because this is like mind blowing.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can watch other things, right? But it's just like nothing quite like that, because even, if you're a kid, if you're just a, hey, I work a 9 to 5, just business guy kind of thing. It's entertainment, and it's something you don't get to see, and human strength. And that's why, like with the History Channel show, I was so pumped up about it, because I've been a fan of strength in general. You watch somebody do something, and it's like, wow, okay, cool. I like that.
No, it's really amazing. What the human body is capable of, and pushing it to the limits.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, how are you feeling now? What's coming up? What's next? And
much better than it was. Last year was rough. Everything kind of came to a head about a month before World's Strongest Man. I was pushing really hard, and Worlds is a tough one to train for.
Absolutely.
We don't get, okay, here's your 6 events that you're going to get in the heat, and here's your final. Here's 27 events you might see.
Good luck.
Yeah. and so trying to touch everything, because I want to be prepared, and it was just, and probably a little bit of my own detriment, missing that stone in 20 and missing the podium, ate at me. So I run myself in the ground, and it's literally just everything just came to a head beforehand. I mean, there was literally about 4 or 5 weeks that every week that I was in my pain management doc's table, and when I would leave, there was a tray just full of needles, from epidurals, pain shots, gel, everything, just to keep pushing through.
And we gotta give her a shout out. So it's Dr. Lundquist.
Yeah, Active Life.
Active Life Pain. So if you guys haven't watched, or you're listening to this, I did a YouTube video where I went down after my hamstring tear. And Jerry talked to me at the Rogue Invitational. I was like, hey, Brian, I think this is something you should do. I did it for my hamstrings, and that has been the best thing for me. It just seems like we were talking about it. It just seems like, so if you're looking into that, she is next level. I know she's helped Jerry a ton, and now has helped me. And, I mean, so I know that she's been working on you and helping out. So that's amazing.
So I think I started with her in 13 after Sanya. I partially tore his patella tendon on the axle. I stepped back, and they had those rib mats, and it kind of caught my foot when I kind of, when I cleaned the thing back. I stepped. Yeah. Well, when I stepped, it caught, so I didn't pull my foot back right away, so it tugged the knee.
Oh man.
And so I got back, and I'm like, what am I gonna do to heal this? And then found out about her, and then went to her. She treated with PRP, and actually we ended up doing both. And then so literally, and then just, I mean, everything I had, I would just go to her. From calf tears to hamstring tears. Malaysia, I tore this quad tendon 75% on that last stone in the heat to make the final. And I got back and talked to ortho, and he's like, my thing is 60%, where we're talking about where we'll let it heal versus operating. He's here at 75. You're way over that. So we're gonna have to go in, basically cut it, put it back together. And we're talking about downtime and everything. I'm like, man, I have a hard time with taking away my leg for 6-7 months. When I just got through 6 heavy events in the final World's Strongest Man. Not great, but I got through them.
Got through it, yeah.
And then I got back in. I was right back in the gym. I think I pulled 700 pounds the day before. I was in his office, talking to him. Burke and I were going to go do the team show the next month in England. And I'm like, what? Because I already talked to Lundquist, and she said, yeah, we'll treat it. And so I told him, I said, I think I'm going to go try to do PRP on it. And it was like talking to a Ford dealer about going to look at a Chevy,
Oh, I bet.
And he's like, the research isn't back on that. I'm like, well, I'm just going to go do it.
Yeah.
Did the one treatment on it, and everything I've done since 15.
That's awesome.
And then just multiple stuff over the years, labrum tears in the shoulders and that. And then finally my hips have gotten bad enough where we had to go a little beyond, just PRP or A2M. So I've had, I think, total of probably 5 bone marrow treatments since last summer.
Okay.
I had 2 in each hip, and then 1 in the shoulders. And
that's quite a process, right?
It's a little bit of a process.
Because they take the bone marrow out right there, and then...
It's a little more invasive because they have to hammer into the pelvis to extract the bone marrow, and then they basically hammer it back into wherever they're going to put it.
Man.
So it's a little more of a process, and PRP is really pretty simple. Just taking blood and spinning it.
It's interesting to me how casually we have a conversation about this. It's like, it's a little more invasive. They just do this and hammer this in.
Hammer the rod in there. I think on one YouTube I did on the one, I had to cut it out because on the one side she actually bent the rod going because our bones are like concrete,
hard, absolutely.
And she's sweating and it bent the rod. So then the other guy's having to hold it straight so she can finish bringing the thing back in there. And I got so many comments like I couldn't watch it. How do you do it? I'm like, well, it's again like whatever it takes.
Yes,
whatever it takes. It's
making it happen. So those treatments are going well, though.
Going really well. It's helped a lot. And I also had a procedure called disc seal, which is kind of like a PRP. They mix up and to heal some bulges in my low back.
Interesting. Okay.
So I had that last summer. That's helped the low back a ton.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's all helped a lot coming along.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said it's something we should have done sooner, but it was one of the things. It wasn't horrible yet.
Sure.
And unfortunately, waited till it got just horrible.
Yeah. And then you have to deal with it.
And we had to do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things that you feel like will come back to a spot where you're going to be competitive. You feel good.
Yeah. It's getting back better and better. The Shaw Classic was rough last year because I was just coming out of those treatments.
I know.
Same thing, the Rogue. Now the Masters Worlds was a little better. I was third there. And then, every month it just gets better and better.
That's perfect.
So we'll probably do a few more treatments, just kind of keep everything healing.
Absolutely.
But it's all coming back, getting better and better.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like you go through it, and a lot of people, like we mentioned earlier in this, right? A lot of people would not understand that. Yeah. They don't understand the mentality. They would say, wait, I have to do what? Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right. And it's one of those things. I understand it. Yeah. And I get it, because it's like, hey, you go in and train, and this is what I do, what I love, what I've worked hard for, so I know that she's amazing. And I feel like you're going to, just keep getting better and better here and see, what kind of open doors are there, like as far as this year goes. And
so we'll see what comes along with Worlds. Hopefully maybe still an invite there. And then if not, then I'll focus on the Shaw Classic.
Yep. Coming ready to rock.
Lots of time to get ready for that.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's going to be August 13th and 14th, man. It's crazy. Like looking at the calendar, how quickly this year seems to already be going by.
Be quick.
But it's exciting. It's going to be one of those things. And, having the guys come back, it is so fun for me to see it, and, especially from where it was that first year, that energy, the second year. And like, I know that this year is just going to hopefully level up.
Bigger and bigger, more crowd and everything.
Yes.
And then doing the other class, it's just going to add more excitement too, I think.
I think, it's, that's the goal. That's the goal, and I think it's for a lot of us seeing that growth, especially, now competitors that have been around for a while. It's an interesting perspective, and, seeing where things go, and it's awesome, man. I think, your perspective on life and everything from your dad and just being brought up that way, right? Like I can definitely appreciate that, because it was kind of the same thing for me in a lot of ways. My dad
farm working.
It's just
hard work.
But there's something about especially I think for a young boy to watch his dad work hard. Yeah. And I just remember there's different times where my dad would get called into work, and I would think to myself, God, it's because my dad worked in power, so the power lines, you get a snowstorm or something, you'd have to go. Yeah. And I was like, you're in this warm house, you're with your family, you get a call, and you got to go deal with that. Yeah. And I always, would think to myself, God, that's so crazy. Yeah. But, I understood, especially as I got a little bit older, it's like he's providing for our family, right? And putting that work in. And it's something like, if he's going to do that, I can work hard at what I'm doing, right? Whether it's, anything, school or, sports or whatever. And you kind of have that work ethic. And it's great to hear, from that perspective, coming up, and that's stuff that you'll never forget. I'll never forget.
Yeah, I remember being a kid, you never saw him at home when the sun was up. He left in the morning before the sun was up, and he wouldn't be home till probably 8 o'clock at night.
Working.
He worked 15, 16-hour days.
That's amazing, man.
And you're talking, you know, when he was in his 40s, 50s, he was doing that.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't even a young kid, you know, young man doing that then, you know, because he was about 39, 40 when I was born.
That's awesome.
So, so like, I don't have any excuse.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. And I'm sure with your kids, your son especially, he's going to see how hard you've worked to open the doors, and that's going to be instilled in him. And it's just kind of that carries on, you know, as well. So
he goes, you know, he got really lucky for the last, you know, that was another good thing that came out of the pandemic. When school was shut down, he went to the shop with you know, Papa and learned how to weld and use a lot of equipment and that. So he already has a little bit of base now.
Absolutely.
You know, from spending, you know, the last couple of years down there.
100%.
So it's good. So he's going to kind of grow up in it as well.
That's awesome, man. Well, God, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Where can people find you if they want to follow you? And
it's Instagram, Jerry Pritchett Strongman, or Facebook, Jerry Pritchett, and YouTube, Jerry Pritchett.
All Jerry Pritchett.
All Jerry Pritchett. Yeah,
I love it, man.
And follow Bubba Strongman.
And that's Jerry's son, and he's 11 now. 11 and doing good. He actually came out and trained with us a little bit, which is cool. It's great to see a young kid getting into it and love it like that. Yeah,
he's pretty excited. He's going to do teenage nationals in June with 13, 14-year-olds at 11. And he has a lot of big plans for himself. We'll sort of see.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Well, that's where it starts, man. It starts in your head and having a goal and a dream and you know, following it. Yeah. You know, and I think that's kind of where we rocked and rolled from, and it's all stemmed from there. And now we get to sit here and have this awesome conversation about the good old days. You know.
Boy. Different things have changed.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, one thing too, you know, how things have changed maybe for some guys coming up, maybe have some certain opportunities, some of the shows, but then in another way, some of the shows guys have got into so much different than some of those wins we did.
Oh, boy.
I mean, they come into great shows that have great, you know, paydays and right away, you know, which, you know, we didn't necessarily get that.
No. I remember flying across the world and not having amazing, you know, accommodations and whatever. You show up to a parking lot in some weird country, you know, and it's like, hey, I guess this is where we're going to compete, and that's the equipment we're going to do it with, you know.
Comes time for payout at the end of the show, and they go, I don't.
Yeah. Sorry, we'll get you. We'll get you next time.
Catch you next time. So you know, oh well, just kind of makes you who you are, though.
That's it, man. That's it, man. Well, I like I said, I really appreciate it, and for anybody listening, please go give Jerry some love. Follow him on Instagram or any of the places he just mentioned. And if you got something out of the podcast, please share it. You know, tag us on Instagram. We'll try to share it. And that's the way we're going to kind of spread the message here and keep the podcast growing is really love, you know, from you guys and getting something out of this show. So we're going to keep coming. We'll keep a lot of content, you know, coming out positive and that message going, you know? Yeah. So anyway, appreciate you, brother, man.
I appreciate it.
Right on. Thank you all. Hope you all doing amazing. For now, go out and be great, and we'll check you guys later.